Okay, so this file has no animation in it. You'll see that as I scrub here through the timeline, nothing is happening. And one of the things I already have set up is I've created all the props, I've modeled all the objects that I need for the scene. I've added lights for the most part. I think one of the major changes is that there's an additional light I added after I did editing in After Effects. I realized I'd need more light kind of coming from this area. But those are changes that you can make after you go through the animatic process. And I think I already maybe got rid of this smoke as well. I had sort of this idea of having smoke, but didn't really have time to kind of see it through, so I'll just disable that there. You should know how to create a camera, but if you don't, you would just come up here to the add menu, or of course hit Shift A, and then you can add a camera. So we're going to come down here to camera, and it just adds one here in the outliner in whatever collection or folder you have already set up. So I'm going to undo that because I already have 3 here. You want to name them based on what your shots are. So for instance, if I select this one, I'm going to click the look through camera button, and then we can select this camera. Okay, so what I want to do is go ahead and animate, and then I'll go ahead and set up scenes. Okay, so I'm not going to actually animate looking through the camera. I have a kind of rough idea of what I want to have happen. So I'll grab our main character here, and let's just kind of have that dog kind of start back here. And so the idea is that we're kind of coming to the scene, the animation starting after the dog's kind of run out to the end of this dock. So I'm going to actually disable this beam here, the tractor beam or whatever you want to call it. I have it parented to the flying saucer, which is the way you would parent anything. It's just the Command P option. If you want to parent one to the other, you'd select the last object to parent to, and then you can do object. So I've already done that, and so I'm just going to toggle its visibility here, and we're going to set a keyframe. So I want this to maybe start around here. I didn't name the dog, so I'm just going to call it dog, and we're going to start dog here, and just kind of pull out our properties here. Go to item, and we can press I over location, of course, to set a keyframe, or you could press I here anywhere in the viewport to bring up the keyframe menu. And then I'm going to go maybe a few seconds in, and then we're going to move this to where it's going to end up. And the idea is to set keyframes to block the animation. So if we were to play this back, and let's just press the 0 key on my number pad here, or if you want to press the toggle camera view, you can do that. If we press the playback button, we can see this is kind of what it looks like. And if you like the speed of that, then you're done blocking that bit of animation. So obviously anyone doing an animation with their own material is going to have different needs. So mine are pretty simple here for what I have to block. I just have to block this character from one point to another. And then the other thing I need to block is this spaceship descending. So I'm going to go into my second camera view. So I'm going to select it here. Now we can press the toggle button to jump into that with this selected. And I actually want it to start out of frame. So I'm going to start that up here. And so maybe as the dog kind of comes out, maybe right around there, it's going to start descending. So I'm going to go ahead and press I over location. And then it's going to be in the spot that it needs to be in. right around when the animal gets to the end of the dock. So we want to turn on that beam so it can see. It might be just a hair low, so I'll just pull it up slightly, and then yeah, that'll work. And then I'm gonna add a keyframe here. Okay. All right, now I want the tractor beam to toggle from off to on. So it's gonna come down, and then I actually want the tractor beam to maybe turn on right about now. So I'm gonna keyframe both the viewport and the render visibility in their current state, which is enabled, and I'm gonna go one keyframe before. I'm gonna disable them, and then I'm gonna press I over each one, and that will keyframe them disabled. And so as we go from 36 to 37, you can see that it enables our object. And I will toggle the visibility for the time being, because right now is when we want the animal to start floating up. So we are going to keyframe the dog here, and you can see here this solid orange line means that there's no movement in keyframes, so it's a hold. So we're gonna move maybe to frame 66 or so, maybe a bit more, and then we're gonna move the dog up here and keyframe the location up here. But I also want to rotate this, so I'm going to go back and keyframe the rotation here at its default, and then at the final state I want to have it maybe rotated like upside down or something like that. Could be more interesting looking. And now I can keyframe that rotation. Okay, and so if I toggle the beam on here with the eye icon, all right, so once it gets up there, I need to turn the beam back off. So I'm gonna keyframe the beam's visibility to be on, right? So the green means that it's not keyframed. So see that it's a hold here. And then the next frame, I want to toggle it off and then keyframe those. All right, so there we go. And now this needs to make its escape. So what I'll do is now keyframe the location here, so it's not really moving, but I do maybe want it to bob up and down just slightly while it's hovering. So as it comes down, maybe I will keyframe that there. Let's keyframe it. Maybe keyframe that. Okay. And now we're going to have it move out of frame. Okay. So if you don't want to accidentally move your camera out of position like I just did, you saw that I kind of scrolled out one click on the mouse. I can easily get back to position because I have a mouse that enabled me to do that. But what might make sense is for you to select your camera by selecting this edge here or selecting it here, and you can actually lock these attributes out, and then if you scroll in the scroll wheel it no longer moves. If you've got it if you have got camera animation already set and it's got keyframes, then you have nothing to worry about. The other thing I could do is just to set a keyframe instead of locking these, and that keyframe would make it so it always kind of snaps back into place. So if for every camera you have, if you just go to frame 1 and then just set a location, rotation, and scale keyframe, you would have nothing to worry about. I think I'm just going to lock these for now and not worry about it. But you definitely want to do something because it's very easy to knock your camera out of position accidentally. And then if you do a render, if you don't know what these coordinates are, you're in trouble. You're not going to be able to line it back up necessarily, and so you'd have to redo work that you may have already done. Okay, so let's just quickly animate this thing out of frame. So we're going to add a keyframe here, and then keyframe this out of view. So I will just press the G key, just kind of move it that way, and press I. Okay, and it's going pretty slowly. It's not very exciting. Also, we want to maybe toggle visibility of the dog once it gets close to the top of our spacecraft here. This is a unique need for my animation. You may not need to actually use this technique, but once this gets maybe around here, I'm going to have it disappear. So let me go to our dog, and we're going to keyframe visibility on, and then we're going to turn it off and keyframe these off. Okay, and now it's not hovering in space. All right, and I want this to really speed out of view. To do that, we'll have to use the graph editor. You can't make animation look good without modifying the graph editor in some way. So let's just come here and take a look at what we've got. So it looks like the biggest change is happening here in the Y location and to some extent in X, but we're going to start with Y. So this is the default ease in, ease out. What we can do is have it slow out like this and then gain speed. So let's try moving this. You can see that it's not affecting the curve on the other side of the handle. That's good. If it is affecting yours, you can right click on this and choose handle type free, and that will make these Bezier handles disconnected. All right, so let's try this again. All right, not really what I'm looking for there. Let's try. So it's slowly moving, and then it should start to ramp up speed quickly. Let's try pulling this handle out. So once it gets to here, that might mean that my keyframe's actually too far away. So I'm going to middle mouse, or press G and middle mouse click, and that will constrain it sideways. I'm actually moving that keyframe along the timeline. And just to show you that, I'm going to bring up the timeline. So I've actually just kind of moved that like this. Okay. Right, and that's along the lines of the speed that I really want out of that. It's supposed to really be fast. Okay. You notice that it's still here. What's going to happen is I'm actually going to get a shadow that's cast, and that's a problem. So if I want to do another shot, I'd have to keep animating this further away, but that's one way to handle it. I could just make it animate very far away so it's not casting a shadow, or I could use my toggle visibility trick that I've become a fan of. So what I'm going to do is once it gets to here, I'm going to toggle the visibility off. So let's go from here to here. Actually, let's, as soon as it leaves frame, how about that? All right, so right here is where I want this. So I'm going to clear the keyframes for that, and now we're going to toggle this visibility. All right, let's try that up here. So okay, and now it looks like it's going really fast. And then I can do some secondary animation. So I'm going to make this a single user. So let's go to Object, make single user, clear the object and data, and Let's go ahead and move that origin. Looks like I didn't clear it. Let me try that again. Okay, I think that worked. Now let's move the origin down. Okay, and right when it starts to move, I'm actually gonna make that tree start to rotate. So let's put a keyframe in for not location, but rotation. And we're just gonna rotate that. Let's turn off origins mode. Now let's rotate that and keyframe that. Okay, and we're just gonna duplicate those keyframes so that it comes back to the same place. And if we want, we can make it rotate just over center. All right, and so that will make the tree look a little heavier, like it's got some mass. All right, that's not half bad. Okay, so now that I've got, let's say that that is the animation that I want, and I've checked it in all of my different camera views. So let's check it in this camera view. Okay, I think I need to actually turn on the beam. So I failed to do that. Let's try that again. And I do have my final render on. You might just be on your smooth shade view. That's fine. So let's go ahead and, okay. So we're only going to be able to use this shot for a few frames at the beginning. At the end, there's really not much. And then, you know, I might do some additional, something additional with this shot where after the animation's over, this is kind of what we're looking at the end. And so what I did to accomplish that was to create additional time in the timeline. So if we make this, I'll call it 192, we can just have maybe the water sort of bobbing up and down as the final scene. So I'm just gonna maybe set up our scenes now since we're getting to that point. So let me just quickly animate this water. That's a bit much. Let's try that again. Yeah, that's what I want. Just a slight amount of movement. So let's just go back to our timeline so I can grab that keyframe. Shift D to duplicate our frames, and something like that. Again. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to make this 144. And we're actually going to move this back to here. Okay. So let's set up our different scenes. So I want to create our default here. It's really easy to do. So we've currently got our camera 1 here positioned. So let's create, rename the scene here just by clicking on it, and then we're going to call this camera 1 underscore 1 to 144 and press return. And now we've named the scene. To duplicate it, really easy, just click on the duplicate button and then do a linked copy. Basically it copies everything in the scene, and then it numbers it, but I think we want to have some additional frames there at the end. So I'm going to call this underscore 144 to 192. Okay, and so now you can see we've got 2. Nothing's really changing, and that's because we haven't changed the render settings. Let's go to our render settings and then just do 144 to 192. And now you can see the timeline has changed. And if we go back to the first one, it changes our timeline. So that makes it really easy for us to configure our rendering into different scenes and easily jump between them. Okay, let's go to the second camera, and this one's easy. We're just going to leave the 1 to 144 configured, and so we're going to just do a linked copy. Actually, let's select this one, then do a linked copy, and then choose camera 2, and leave that all the same, but choose camera 2 here. And now when we jump back and forth, it will change the cameras. All right, and then we've got to do this one more time. Let's do linked copy. We're going to call this camera 3. I may have misnamed the other one. I'll go back and fix that. Okay, there we go. That's the close-up. And yeah, so that's actually supposed to say camera 2. All right. And so this is nice. I can instantly look at the scene name and see what frame range it's set up to render with and what camera we're using. So that is super convenient. And then I mentioned before that I had that special setup, that folder that has, let's go to my folder here. You can see it's got a special setting here. So let's go to camera 3, and then we're going to duplicate this. And linked again, just it copies everything in a way that's linked so that you're not adding additional information to your Blender file. Okay, and I'm just going to call this X400, and my animation might not be exactly the same, but when I did this the first time, the numbers came out to be 250 to 350. So let's take a look at time remapping. So when I did this the first time, this was kind of slow, or not slow, it's too fast. So I want to make this happen slower. So what I can do is go down to time remapping, and we're just going to make that 400. And let's just take a look at, so it hasn't even started getting beamed up yet. So we're going to make the start and end here 250 to 350. Okay, and let's just see where we are by turning off the beam here. And let's jump to a different camera view. Maybe camera 1. Okay, so it's not going to line up like I had it. It looks like it's going to be more like frame 188 or something like that. So let's go ahead and go back to this one. I'm going to go maybe 166. To 200. Right, so that should be going 4 times slower. Okay, so I have all that set up, and now what I can do is go ahead and render all of these out as viewport animations. So I'm going to do that next.